Welcome to the Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
So I think the goal of this podcast is to talk about engagement still, sales, marketing, business development, customer success, all the different types of engagement that are important. And we're going to leverage these four types of stories. And then we'll just wrap and give everybody ideas.
And I think we could just roll into it. And so, the four types of stories that we're going to cover, we're just going to list them off here up front, is the stories from past experiences, the stories that you've heard about others or history, something maybe you read about or done some due diligence on. Original content, that can be research or study, best practices. We'll kind of give you some examples of those. Imagination. That's one that I know that I'm really kind of trying to use my imagination to think about how that can work in a new and unique way. And then lastly, we're going to talk about vulnerability again. So, Howie, I know that stories from past experiences was one that you resonated with. So why don't you lead us off?
Cool, thanks. Yeah, and I'll start off with purpose. So we're in this engagement series. So how do you engage customers, like current customers or prospects, or your market, or if you're in PR, how do you engage analysts and the press? We all need to kind of engage and move each other in this world. And stories are a powerful way that we do that. And so we kind of thought we'd dissect a little bit about those four sort of categories to help drive that along. The first one, as Beastmode was saying, is stories from my past experience. So, if I'm going to engage either on social media or in marketing or PR or sales, direct sales, or if I'm teaching a class, being able to talk about a past experience that I've personally had is kind of it's not the only way to go for stories, but if your story is going to resonate with a little bit more power than just you telling a story about somebody else. And of course you can do both. But let me give you an example. I had a call a couple hours ago with somebody that I had been interviewing with, and I've taken a different job, but I wanted to give them something. So I had this little call and I shared all these different ideas with them. And I shared a story about a certain account management program that grew customers 44% of the time that I ran customers through that. And I told this individual how that went down, right? And so that was able to be an inspiration for him to grow customers in his account management and his customer success strategy. And so that was a great, for me, that was a great thing to market myself and to have a good relationship and really leave him with something valuable. But it was a literal story from my past. So, I think in your case, obviously Beastmode, you've had with your business, some different things that you remember that were impactful as well, but maybe any perspective on how stories from your past experiences can convey value and drive some engagement.
Yeah. Number one, they do drive engagement tremendously. When you paint the picture of a past experience, hey, I was in this situation, 2 years ago, and this is what happened then. I'm in this situation again today. Here's where I made my decisions today. And you're painting the story of what happened from last time. Can anybody relate to that? And that's the open invitation. Can you relate to my story? Here's the decision I made today. Has anybody made this type of decision? And what type of outcomes did you foresee? Did it give you the benefits that you were hoping? Anytime that you can invite somebody into, and we all do it. We all give snippets. Here's, you'll see somebody complain about a relationship or a job or something like. And so you're telling the beginning of a story, right? But we don't ever. We're missing a lot of times the invitation to join the story. Or what we're doing is we're not painting a big enough picture. It's almost like you're taking a screenshot of the the movie screen, where you got this 2-minute, where it's trying to tell you about the movie that's coming up next, but you all you did was take a picture of it, when you could have painted the picture and then invited somebody to join in. And that's our role in the business world. Everything we do, every time we're having a sales call, we should be inviting the customer into that story. This is what it looks like if you do business with me. This is what it looks like if you don't do business with me. We've had a customer who's similar to you, and they chose this product and they received this outcome. We're inviting them into a story. Would you like this outcome? And the same thing is when somebody's on the fence, or they're getting ready to make a bad decision. You're inviting them. I'm giving my unbiased attention or unbiased opinion on this. I had a customer who did something very similar, and they came back 6 months later wishing they didn't. Here's the outcome. Feel free to make your own decision. You're telling them a story and inviting them to make a decision.
Interesting. So I raised my hands like hallelujah as you're talking, because although you couldn't see both hands, so here's your two hands. I'll give you a little hallelujah. Yeah, I really hadn't thought of that angle for this. That's why it's so nice that we have each other on these calls and on these podcasts, because the back and forth is better than a monologue. It really is better. Okay. So I have actually had a lot of luck with one of the scenarios that you said, which is that you can, as you're working with one customer or one whatever, or training somebody or whatever your situation is, working with another human. How's that? That's pretty broad. Working with a human, but sharing that other experience from something that someone else has gone through is a really, really powerful thing, because people, first of all, we're kind of tribal and we want to know what other people in the tribe are doing, right? And so because of that, I think we were given that so that we can avoid having to make every single mistake originally, right? We have the ability to learn from each other, and stories are one of the vessels that we have been given to convey learning. And so we can avoid risk and we can avoid mistakes, but also gain from benefits. For example, the first person who cut open a coconut, who would have ever thought to mess with a coconut? They're really hard to get into, and who knows, when you break those open, that might have been poison in there, versus something that would be sustaining. So passing along experience and passing along stories and all of that is something that's really, really natural and really good. And I've had a tremendous amount of luck in with business and with marketing and with sales, as well as with training, I will say, by telling stories from other situations that are, relevant to them. For example, if you're talking to a bank and you say, I work with XYZ Bank and they were also having this kind of issue, here's what they did. That's so valuable. So I'm really glad you kind of enhanced what you just did by bringing that up. Is you said it's not just about me as Howie, it's also about my company and what we bring, what we offer, and how we've helped others, and what somebody else has gone through. So I love that.
Yeah. You know who's made a business model off of this type of thing that I'm talking about? It's Yelp. So they're inviting you to come in and tell the story of your experience with this business. And then what it does is, on the back end to other people who's coming to engage, is, do you want this experience or not? This was my experience, and this is the story that I'm painting for you, and I mean, it works. It works.
It does. Love it. Yelp is a great example. So stories from my past experience, stories I've heard about from others, or history. You kind of knocked that out, I feel like, by bringing up the other insights. So that was good.
Yeah. But if you do that, you have to tie it into yourself. Okay? People don't want to hear you tell a story about somebody else, and the reason why they're listening to you tell a story is because they want to know, how does that relate to you? How does that engage you? Does that story make you mad? Does it make you sad? Do you relate? Don't just tell somebody else's story. That's not relatable.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, tying it in and taking the time to be creative and storytelling with a proper application. What you're saying is make sure you're giving proper application to
Yeah.
the story.
Uh, yeah, I'll give you an example real quick. So you're telling the story of or you're saying there was a client who made this outcome instead of this outcome. Now, if you just tell that story as it is, the person that you're talking to on the phone says, "Well, that's wonderful." But what ties the story in is that person was dealing with me, and I gave them the advice to take option A, and they chose option B. And because they chose option B, things went south. And I'm telling you right now to choose option A. And the key is it's me,
Yes.
not that it's this business over here.
There's a couple of great things about that. The first one is that even if they don't choose to buy from you, you have still left them better than they were. And that is a really big thing. If people can sense that you're leaving them in a smarter, better position than before, there's something about that authenticity and that genuine value added, value bringing that is just so powerful. And it's just, I think for all of you listening, I feel like from your personal psychological health perspective, if you're giving like that, they say, and Beast Mode runs a nonprofit that it literally is in the business of giving away, okay, and giving value. But they do say that people who give away and who have that giving mentality are actually healthier. So I also think that not only the person, but at a company level, if we're giving, we're also healthier. I think that companies are made up of what? Of people. So I think that approach is awesome. So but I don't want you to lose what Beast Mode said, because when you're giving away value, it's okay to have a hook. It's okay to say, by the way, we solved this problem, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the best part about it is if, just like you said, if they choose not to go with option A, they choose option B, again, they didn't heed the warning. Well, guess what happens if option B goes south? Guess what's going to come to their mind immediately? I remember that sales guy. He told me we should have gone with option A. We need to cut this contract that we're doing with so and so. We need to go back to that other guy because I remember him because he painted a story for me. And then they're going to come back and say, I want the story of option A. And you say, welcome back.
It's good. I love that.
The next one that we're going to
let me give them an example then. So when you're in one of the theme parks, whether it be the basic stuff over at Six Flags or whether it be high-end parks like Disneyland, you might have noticed that when you get off the ride, when you get off the Winnie the Pooh ride, you actually go through the Winnie the Pooh store. And that, so big businesses have learned that it's okay to provide a wonderful experience and a wonderful value, but then also to have people be able to complete that and extend that value with products and services. So that's what Beastmode's talking about.
Yeah. And for that example is we just invited you into a 30-second, amusement park ride. Would you like to take that home? Here's a small version of that. They're inviting you into the story. Do you want to relive that? Here's a picture of you reliving that moment. Would you like to do that? Same thing. Now, I will give you something real quick. I pulled up an article from Forbes from last year talking about storytelling. And one of the stats that they give is that and I'll just read it verbatim. So it's from Forbes. It's not my original thought. Storytelling will not only increase your brand favorability in your audience's eyes, it will also be up to 22 times more memorable than just facts. And
Wow.
I can't beat this drum any louder. Do not just tell your customers facts. Don't just say, hey, we do this, 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 and this. Choose us. That's not a story. That's all facts.
That's incredible.
Don't toot your own horn. A lot of businesses say these are the words we want. These are the words we want. It's not about you. It's about the customer.
So I've unfollowed two companies. I talked about this recently, and I've told Beastmode about this too. I've unfollowed two famous companies on LinkedIn because all they did is spam my feed with brag stuff. It wasn't storytelling. It wasn't original content that was valuable to me. They were basically treating me like a product, and didn't approve. I really resented it, and I was like, "This is some of the smartest people in the room, and they're abusing my feed like this. It's insanity."
Yeah, that's ruthless.
So the next one, so number one is stories from my past experiences or stories from my company. So those stories, and then making sure that we connect those stories to our product and services. So good job on all of that. Number two is original content and research and study best practices. So I know you're working on processes that will eventually be content,
Yes.
right now. So you're in the middle of this. I mean, I've done a lot of this too, but you want to go first?
Yeah, this one isn't my favorite, so I'm going to be really quick on it just because it doesn't speak to me as much. So if you're doing original content and you're telling the story around the original content, it's why you're doing the content. So again, the content, the research, the study itself that's not a story. That's facts. That's just data. But I'm doing this because I'm doing this. This is my outcome. Can you relate? Have you tried something similar? Would you engage this? Those are the types of things. And oftentimes those work best in real short snippets, in my opinion. Here's the data. Here's the research I found. This is where I'm going with it. And you're just offering the story of an outcome.
Got it. So from a content perspective, from an original content perspective, sorry, I'm playing with my lighting here, trying to figure out better glare situations, and I'm failing at it badly. So I think I like this one a lot, actually. This is one of my favorites. And original content for me is things like taking your secret sauce, taking your best practices, taking approaches that are proven from your experience or from your company's experience, and turning that into content, because that way companies and individuals or people or whatever can learn from your mistakes and from your successes. So I like it a lot. It can be things like research your company's done, best practices. And also what I would say is that you can mix number one and number two. I think you should actually. I think you hinted on that a second ago. But when you're doing original content and research and sharing best practices, mixing a story with that is, I think, a really smart idea.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're gonna get lost in the vast amounts of data people are pumping. You don't want to be data. Okay?
We had a friend of ours talk about. Totally agree. We had a friend of ours talk about this a couple weeks ago, maybe just a week ago, and he was saying that he did some financial analysis for a company, and he had all these amazing stats, and he saved him $1 million or whatever it was, and it didn't really resonate with people. But then he used another example, which was just a story. He actually saved him less money, but the story was very relatable, and it was more story focused than facts based, and it was very successful. So what Beastmode is saying is, listen, your original content, your research, your best practices, all that may be actually better and more actionable, but you could actually have it lost if you don't mix it with a story.
Yeah, very true.
That's such good advice.
Yes. Just pause, rewind 15 seconds and listen to that again. It's just, that's as nuts and bolts as it gets.
So good. What about imagination? You kind of were out there. Yeah, I loved it. It inspired me. I want to hear what you have to say, and I'll maybe add something to it, but I like what you said.